Testing, testing. You're probably wondering, is this another godforsaken Season 2 video? And the answer is, yes it is. That's all we do here. I'm the Season 2 video essay channel. This is my buddy Faye. Welcome, take a seat, dislike and unsubscribe. We have a script this time, so expect my ideas to be a little bit more fleshed the fuck out.
Oh, yeah.
When you saw this title, two things probably went through your mind. Don't take mine. When you saw this title, two things probably went through your mind. One, Noel is trying to combine their autistic fixations into one singular concept in a way that only they probably are able to understand. And this one, and this one. And two, is that Alois Trancy in the backrooms?
Yes.
To say that, to that I'll say yes. To the first one, yes, I am, kind of, shamelessly. I have always had an interest in liminal spaces, basically since they became popular to the weirdcore sphere. I love when things are empty and unnerving and painfully nostalgic. And then, going a bit deeper into the backrooms, I've always loved alternate universe shit. I was an SCP kid, written up lab... written up lab reports and documentation are fucking awesome. The lore, the creepypastas, the whole thing has just been fascinating to me. And while I'll be delving into the themes of these spaces and the particular emotions they convey a little later on, I'd also like to toss a bone to those who felt clickbaited much the same way my Grell video was 30 seconds of me talking and a gif of her spinning for 14 minutes. Here is the most self-indulgent hypothetical I can give you. What would happen if Alois Trancy was lost in the back room?
Hey, hello? What the fuck? Jesus Christ, where am I? Claude, get out here. Stop hiding, you sorry shit. Hello? Oh, hail Torona, Mondero Terrell. Bugger off. Hiding away when I need you, that's just like you. Don't move, stay still. Yeah, where the hell am I gonna go? What the fuck is that? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I swear to fucking god. Fuck, 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 fuck.
Do you think he died? Are you okay?
I think I fucked out of my ass for fucking season 2 video essay.
Essays recorded outside have a different vibe to them.
They do, because I'm trying to fucking put somewhere where I don't get splinters in my ass on the floor.
So, yeah, season 2 doesn't exist. If you'll allow me to over-explain myself, that's why I edited all those pictures so the characters weren't there. Because they aren't. Yes, while the characters were drawn and did and do populate the canvas of Season 2's backgrounds, Season 2 itself holds little to no physical bearing on the series. We all know this. Some people take comfort in it.
I do. I take a lot of comfort in it.
So I can't think of a better way of presenting that outside of a set of empty rooms, familiar only from the opening of a show that wasn't real. And the main definition that most of the guys who make the video essays in their calm and soothing voices seem to be that a liminal space is defined by the word Lyman, which means
Hymen?
Lyman.
Hymen?
Lyman. Limen. L-I-M-E-N.
Change 2 fucking words and that's a hymen.
You know, that's actually kind of relevant because the definition of a Lyman is a threshold.
Pussy is threshold, guys! Let's go!
Okay, so what the fuck is a threshold? A threshold is defined by the exact moment when something takes effect. It's the moment of no return. The moment that someone consciously realizes that something is wrong.
Or like the moment you get like fucking pushed out of your mama's womb.
Yeah, exactly. That's a definition of someone breaching a threshold. But what about the state where you're like, you know, in the middle of that shit?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not in or out.
Where you're like, where it's like the guy is being kind of creepy, but you're not entirely sure if he's like well-intentioned or not. Is it like that time that I sent you like a photo of me in the ER?
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, let's go into it.
Okay.
It's like the thing about liminal spaces, and something similar that I experienced semi-recently, is that something happened to my fucking stomach, right? I think it was like one of the intestines got wrapped in like some like fat in my stomach, and it constricted the stomach that I got like really bad like stomach pain for a day, like bad enough to have to go to the ER, right? Because my parents thought I was having like what do you call it, the fucking explodey thing?
Appendicitis?
Yeah, appendicitis. So they thought it could be appendicitis, right? And you know, the funny thing about taking photos when you're on an IV drip line and your parents aren't entirely sure whether or not your appendix has or has not exploded is that when you ask, hey, take one of me pretending to be dead, they tell you no. Because you swear it'll be really funny later. Because it will be. It will be really funny later. Whether you're dead or not. And they refuse to acknowledge that.
Right, because they're worried that like you're in like a liminal space.
Something might be wrong.
Yeah, you've got two possible, like you're walking down one of those hallways and you've got two possible futures. One future, which is the more likely future, where it'll be really funny because you're alive and this is all just a very weird afternoon.
Yeah.
Or the other future, that this is the liminal transitionary place between your time on the earth, your time in God's kingdom.
Exactly. Probably not in God's kingdom, though, given,
I'll, like, transpose a picture of agony. So, there's a pain threshold, there is a boredom threshold, and there's even a morality threshold. And if you are watching Season 2, you'll probably experience and cross all three. It's a brink. It's also the barrier that must be crossed. Basically, you need to cross the threshold to go somewhere. It's a boundary. It's a space between. And, you know, that definition, though it might sound good, makes almost, like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, since I'm a visual learner. So perhaps it'd be a bit easier to represent it physically. Keeping in mind the concept of the threshold, I want you all to look at these pictures that are representations of it. They are not that complicated. As soon as you see them, you know exactly what they're about. I think threshold in the definition doesn't actually represent where the place is going or where it's taking you. Rather, it represents the exact moment you start to realize something is very, very off. Something has changed. Do these pictures make you uncomfortable? Why do they do that? Is it the frame pushing the ceiling too high for a human to be able to view it at a natural angle? Is it the furniture too close together? Is it the impossibly cut lines of squares and triangles too accurate to be man-made? What about the distant nostalgic feeling that you've been to this place before, but you know for a fact that even if it once existed, it isn't real anymore? It's a dream, a memory, a place where reality is at its thinnest, and you feel like you can just reach out and tear it open. It'd rip like wet paper, and all you'd have left in the palm of your hand is the thin fiber of the stuff which memories are made of. It's the place between places, somewhere you're not meant to linger. Passing a threshold happens so quickly, but sometimes it can drag on for years. Sometimes it can take ages, the slow transition of hauling boxes out of your room until finally you're moving the last overstuffed crate into the trunk of your dad's BMW and bidding your childhood behind. There's also the inherent surrealism to liminal spaces. Most are often defined as unreality. They're supposed to lean into the distorted, the uncomfortable, the feeling where, you know, you were here before, you just don't remember it. And also, you had left them behind for a good reason. It's a good thing they're over. Something is wrong here. And that's the draw of these liminal spaces, part of the reason they became so popular. The bleed of discomfort, things not being where they're meant to be, familiar structures, the sense that something barely recognizable to the subconscious has been changed, a lack of logic or reasoning, and the dim bulb of nostalgia. Now that we're all on the same page, let's discuss how Black Butler Season 2 helps hit all of those points and how it spins back to the broader narrative of its place in Black Butler's history. Don't click off the video. I'm not wearing this shirt ironically. I just want to let you know this is a genuine purchase.
I know, I was there.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god. So, in practice, there are a lot of ways that Season 2 is liminal, and I'm not even going to get into the way that it's inherently kind of a liminal thing, just the meta of Black Butler. It's inherently a very weird, very off-putting, very strange story that's just, has a lot of things that are going on about it that are just very, very, very weird for the time. Like, the first thing I'm gonna talk about very quickly is how the art style is kind of weird. So it came out in 2010, and you can already tell by looking at it that it is mostly done digitally with even a little bit of CGI usage. And by digitally, I don't mean that it had like the hand-painted, gradient, well-detailed backgrounds of Season 1. It's honestly very cold and very just undetailed in the backgrounds. There's no small details. And also, and this might just be part of them trying to make the Trancy household look big and cavernous, by making everything so big, they made everything look so empty. So if you were to take a scene and just edit out Alois, edit out Claude, you would see a room with almost no character in it, which is, in fact, a liminal space. Even in other episodes where they specifically have an over-reliance on group shots, namely the costume ball episode, the whole thing it doesn't look like a party. Like, here's a comparison of the party from, I think, the fourth episode of Season 1, and then the party from, Season 2, episodes 5 and 6. Huge difference.
I also mention, it's almost a little bit funny that they are in these, because liminal spaces are largely considered to be, like, inescapable, right?
That's exactly it.
And they're...
Like, it's a good reason you're seeing pictures of them and that you're not actually in there.
Exactly. And it's like, the reason why Claude and Alois feel like they're in these liminal spaces is because they are tasked with the unescapable fate. They are in the unescapable hands of bad writing.
Yes!
And no one can save them.
No one can. They are stuck there in this, and that's even further emphasized by something that Alois says. But there's literally a scene, when he's talking to Sebastian, where he says,
I'm jealous of you. I bet you travel to all sorts of fine places, don't you? I wish that I could travel sometime. This mansion's so dull.
It's dull.
But he's not saying it to Sebastian. He's saying that to, like, Sebastian and the writers and the meta and the audience.
Yeah.
Like, my brain's exploding a little bit, don't you think?
I do. I entirely
He's never
agree.
gonna go anywhere.
Exactly. And that's why it's really interesting that, once again, I'm saying that, like, characters of the main cast very rarely appear in Season 2. Like,
they appear as cameos. There's the episodes with Lizzie. Like, they have almost no bearing on the plot except for the half-assed scene where Eloise threatens them. And even that doesn't go anywhere. In fact, the episodes where they appear were sequenced off to different writers.
Literally.
The main person who wrote it, who I think her name was Marie Okawa, she wrote, the first episode, the duel episode, the episodes after that, every filler thing, like, in between. Including the episode where, like, Agni and Soma and the servants show up again. She didn't have any part in that.
She did not care
that
about
wasn't
these
in
bitches.
The story. It was just like a checking a box for a Black Butler media.
Exactly, right? So they're filling their quota of, like, here's really off-model Agni and Soma that do not look like anything that they do in the actual manga, especially once you get into like Yana's newer art style.
Yeah. So I think this also goes into the weirdness of the character designs. And by that, I just mean that, you know, they're very Black Butler-ish, but they're also just very weird. I'm going to take, for example, Hannah. She's supposed to be dressed very modestly. She's got this big, you know, she's got a very high collar dress that goes to her wrists and, you know, down to her ankles. It's extremely modest. But she also has, it's like skin tight. Like you can sort of
See the outline of her boobage.
of her cleavage.
Yeah.
Through like that. Do you know how tight that dress would have to be for that to happen?
Right?
Right, like, so it's a strange paradox of like we have fan service but we don't have fan service. And then we go on to Alois, which is the sense that he has a very weird character design in the sense that I'll talk about his outfit and then I'll talk about his actual look. But his outfit, it's weird because it's almost a visual trick on how big he's supposed to be, because you see him and, you know, you typically expect the tall socks to make him seem taller, make his legs seem longer, but the way his coat is, it actually kind of, it kind of boxes his silhouette in.
It visually shortens him.
Yeah, it visually shortens him. So the, you know, the coat messes with the silhouette, so you don't see his legs as long, you actually see them as kind of short, which, you know, confuses the hell out of people because the tall socks, the cutoff of where the thigh is, and then the shorts are supposed to be like a linear, like, okay, that's supposed to emphasize how long and leggy he is. But here, you can have mine.
Thank you, baby girl.
Um,
Getting paid in boba today.
yeah. But you can tell by like the light of it confuses his silhouette. You're not sure how tall he is or how small he is, because it's really hard to determine where his legs are.
Exactly. It's just bad character design.
I could talk for ages about how the fact that, you know, his purple coat shows the difference between blue, the color representing his salvation, and red, the color representing his trauma, and how that too is a liminality. But for the most part, it's just a kind of confusing character design.
And it's honestly, I think maybe there was one person in that studio that was actually thinking about that.
No, Yana designed him.
No, I mean like the difference of like the coat color depending on like the...
Yeah.
I think there was probably one colorist in that studio that was like, I'm gonna give this season some form of something.
Whoever that is, like, I am like, I love you. You've made my life so much worse.
And mine.
Yeah, because you have to hear about it. And then there's also the other thing with Alois, which is this is gonna just be kind of a weird conversation. I'm sorry in advance. So Ciel is supposed to be like the cute little kid, like that's his archetype. You know, he's supposed to be the cute, like, you know, big eyes, very, very, you know, very ooh-woo, very, I don't know in what universe you'd call him that, but...
Should I say the forbidden word?
No, I think we're all thinking it, but, you know, he's supposed to just be, you know, cute, small, inspires feelings of protection. And Alois...
Moe.
Yeah, Moe. That's the word. I was already going to say the other word.
Want to drink it properly this time?
No, it's supposed to be like an alcoholic, you know? You didn't want to mention Shodas?
Yeah.
It's like fucking alcoholic.
Me, the one time I tried to defend Yana Taboso, but then I found out that she is literally indefensible.
So, because that's what Ciel's supposed to be, Alois is supposed to be like the same thing, because, you know, they are literally like the parallels of each other. But, Alois is like design-wise, like he's 5'5", you know?
He's taller than me!
Yeah. He, you know, his face is very, like, you know, even though he's got kind of the baby face, his eyes are smaller, like they're intentionally a little bit narrower. And he's just, like, the clothes that he wears doesn't emphasize how small he is. Like, for instance, Ciel doesn't wear, like, things with big collars. Like, big things that emphasize the shoulders. Alois, like, a large part of Alois's coat is the big sleeves and the emphasized shoulders. I'm not saying that it's a particularly emasculating coat, but it definitely doesn't make him read as a child, you know? Like, and then you add in the tall socks, the short shorts, and you realize, like, this character, and I mean, there's a little bit of dissonance when you look at Yana's art, because Yana generally makes him look a little bit younger, which, but, you know, it makes him look a little bit younger, and that's why it creates a very weird liminality, kind of similar to what we were talking about with the teenhood, and, the strange state between being a child and being an adult, and with him, which is, I think if they made him look more like Moe, the way Ciel was, or even the way Elizabeth was, I don't think he would be hated as much.
Yeah, agreed. Probably for many reasons.
Yeah.
But we don't...
And it kind of goes into the whole, like, this weird mix of sexualization, but also, like, you know, it's like...
I need a cold cigarette to ease the pain.
And there's also just some other weird character designs, like, it's just to cleanse our palate, what the fuck was up with Claude's haircut?
That motherfucker was off model, not even for half the season, for like 75.9% of the season. I think he was on model like 5 times, one of which was a scene where he and Sebastian were doing weird shit in the lake. The only times he's on model is purely fueled by yaoi horniness on that stupid fucking studio side.
They're like, wait, fuck, we need to make Claude attractive.
Shit,
But, like, every single time he smiles, it looks wrong. And I went through his character sheet, like, of his references and stuff.
Are there no references of him smiling?
No. There's no model of him smiling.
Even though it's, like, in the script?
Which, yeah, literally, like, the entire, like, thing for the last episode is that he's smiling, and it's really weird. But it isn't in the model sheet that Yana made for him, or the studio made for him, where he's, like, actually smiling. And I think that's part of the reason why it looks so wrong, because every single person that was doing, like, his face was not meant to be smiling.
Yeah, like, every single animator is sitting there like, do you think he smiles like a smug bastard or like a friendly bastard?
Like, it's weird. I'm gonna actually look up a picture of him smiling so you can see how weird it is. Black Butler Claude smile. So
Why is he kind of fine?
shut up.
No, he's kind of... I need to take a walk. I need to take a...
Are you ready to come back?
So full of holes. Like what I'd like to do to Claude.
He's not handsome.
Looks like he's like... You know Atsushi from Bucktick?
No.
I think it's...
That, I'm gonna put a pin
Your
in that.
viewership will probably know who he is.
Okay.
But his eyebrows remind me of Atsushi.
Uh-huh. I think you just ruined Atsushi for anyone. For
No! No, I'm just saying that they designed him based off of a sexy-ass man.
Oh, your visual K guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. There's a bit of a visual K lean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a slut for VK men. What can I say?
Not Claude Faustus.
Not Claude Faustus. Just the general leniency towards VK that Yana Toboso has.
Okay. You're real for that. So, another thing, this is just gonna be me being all, you know. Another thing is that season 2's plot makes no fucking sense. From a logical storytelling point. Alright, we got the whiteboard. We're getting into, like, the ways in which season 2 kind of fails as a story. Stop reading your yaoi. I did this thing where I basically downloaded all the season 2 episodes and then I cut them all together, because one of the biggest issues of season 2 is it happens out of order. So it makes an extremely difficult plot to follow. So I basically took all those episodes, I cut them together, I put them together in a more logically sequential order, made some of the more gruesome scenes a little bit less bad, and also you know, changed some of the music,
and removed most of the fan service that I could, and also fused a spider OVA with it and cut out all the filler.
Yep.
And now that would be that like supercut would be an extremely illegal thing to do. So I'm not for piracy, but if you want to watch it, if you want to watch it, definitely don't go on my Tumblr and click the link to the movie that will take you to a Google Drive where it is put. Like, that would be terrible, and that would be against all piracy laws. So don't do that. Support the original creators.
As somebody who watched it, it's actually pretty good. As somebody who fucking hates season 2, it's actually pretty good. My only critiques were more Agni and Soma.
Yeah, I kind of had to cut the entire ball scene out.
You could have just added them on in the end.
Yeah, but so here's the way a plot normally goes with Black Butler. So you have the introduction, where we first find it out. It can usually be started by CL getting some letter from the Queen. And then you have the investigation. First incident where something goes wrong. The first plot twist happens. There's some action. There's consequences of that action. And then there's another action that usually leads towards the plot. Backstory shit happens. And then you have the moment where everything goes to shit. And, like, the real plot takes off. So this might not seem like, you can doodle. This might not seem like it's a very coherent story, but I think I'd like to give you an example with, say, the Indian Butler arc. So the introduction happens where Ciel and Sebastian find out about that guy who's been killing all the Anglo-Indians. Or not killing. No, he didn't kill people. He just humiliated them, and he was doing some shit. But
And they were fucking colonizers, so they deserved it.
They fucking deserved it.
He's never done anything wrong in his life.
I'm sure he disagreed. But the introduction was when Ciel and Sebastian would first got the letter of the Queen and saw the people tied up, and they talked with Scotland Yard. The actual investigation started to happen. Met Soma and Agni, and the two of them basically got to know. They got to know these guys. They were investigating, even if it wasn't traditional investigation, because they were basically figuring out how trustworthy these guys were, and they were still suspects. So all the time spent goofing off with them could be argued was just part of some investigation. And then you have the first action sequence, which is like the first big twist of the story, which was when Soma realized that Agni was working for the enemy. So, there's that big scene, the I'm one hell of a deer part, Soma's all upset. And the closing action, the beginning of the sentimental backstory stuff is basically when Soma and Ciel have their heart-to-heart, and Sebastian basically tells Soma he's fucking useless. And that leads them to the rising action, which is the resolve to, keep going into the Curry arc. So they basically decide, we gotta do this. We gotta defeat Agni, and that is when the big climax of the arc happens, because everything goes to shit. And, we get the emotional resolution. That's the way Black Butler plots work. There'll be a minor, climax. There will be some emotional, attachment after that climax. And then there will be, the resolve to keep going, and then the big climax at the end of all of the resolution. So, as another more obvious example, the Campania arc, with Ryan. So the introduction happens when Ciel first hears about, the luxury liner. He first decides he needs to go there. The investigation happens shortly afterwards, where he's actually on the ship, he's exploring, he has to do the Phoenix pose. They're investigating all the stuff that's going to lead up to, the big reveal is being taken care of. That's where he sees the Undertakers, where he first meets Ryan, and they first get introduced with the idea of a corpse being brought back to life. The first action happens when he and Lizzie get cornered by all of those zombies. Argue the emotional beat was where Ciel and Sebastian had their little flashback where you learned how Sebastian basically raised him. But honestly, there's two emotional beats. But when the emotional beats happened, everything was in the process of everything going to shit, so it doesn't count. So the action was when they all got cornered. The reaction, the emotional beat, was when Lizzie was having her whole moments, girl power. The backstory and the resolve to keep going happened right before they found the Undertaker, and then the moment where everything loses all of its cohesion and everyone just starts hitting each other was the big Undertaker fight. Now this might it might seem like a very flawed and rudimentary way of going over a typical Black Butler plot, but basically any arc can kind of be forced into this frame. Give me another arc. Okay, never mind.
The Green Witch arc.
Yes, Green Witch arc. Introduction. They go to Germany. Investigation. They meet the witches. The first action is when they first see the wolf and they have to start investigating it. But then the emotional resonance part of the arc happens basically for an entire volume where Ciel's all retreated into himself, and then he regains the resolve to keep going. And then we have the scene where Sebastian spends 3 volumes fighting a pre-World War I German tank. Make sense?
Yeah. What about the Idol arc?
The Idol arc. Introduction, they find out Lizzie is missing. Investigation, they start basically looking into this music hall. The first action, they decide to make their own idol band as a response. the emotional reaction, basically when CL goes, basically Agni's death, the emotional reaction to the first thing that happened, the emotional reaction to that decisive action was Agni's death, and then rising from that death, they basically found out about, real CL, and that's where everything goes to shit. The idol arc was just to fill time before they could get to real CL. So this is, stop having an emotional reaction over Agni's death. Stop. He's right there, your wife is fine. Do you know how...
Like a wounded animal.
Yeah.
I'm merely a wounded animal in the hands of Yanatabo, so...
Yeah.
He was...
Okay, anyway, I need to talk about how season 2 is a flawed story. Ow, my leg. Okay. So the way season 2 fucks up is, it completely skips the introduction. Well, okay. It gives an introduction, but not to CL and Sebastian. It kind of already assumes we know these guys, which makes sense because it's a sequel. It gives the introduction to Claude and Alois. And then, so that's how, how it starts. Then it completely skips the investigation. Like, we get 3 filler episodes that are supposedly them learning a little bit about the transies, but none of them actually create any actual interest in the transies, aside from them going to that fucking costume ball. And then the first costume ball action happens, which you would assume to be the payoff of the investigation, but there was no investigation. There was just a couple of scenes that were deceptively hidden in the end credits. Why would you hide stuff in an anime in the end credits? It's not fucking Marvel. So, so you completely skip the introduction of the actual main characters in lieu of these new main characters, so CL and Sebastian don't get an introduction. Alois and Claude do. You cover you hide the investigation. So already we're at, like, this one's fucked up and this one is non-existent. Then you have the first action sequence, which is the costume ball, which, I mean, it's decent as an action sequence, but the issue is it doesn't lead into the emotional resonance that these things are supposed to. So that entire arc, which by the way was written by a different person than the other arcs, but that entire arc is completely irrelevant. You can cut it out of the story, and as long as you keep the scene of Claude and Sebastian being really gay in their lake, it doesn't change anything. Trust me, I did that. That's part of the reason my movie was so good. I mean, what movie? So the actual action that should pay off from the investigation is the, I guess you could say the costume ball is part of the investigation, but there's too much, like, action in it for it to actually be them building tension, because the tension is relieved. So, the action would be the duel, and the payoff of that action is, the scene where Alois recovers from being stabbed, episode 8, that really sad episode. But the issue is even though we get a little bit of emotional, like, connection there, it doesn't end with him taking a step towards the ending. He just dies and dips for 2 episodes, and instead it basically goes the route as though CL was the one introduced from the beginning as the protagonist, even though all of these softer, more introspective parts are given to Alois. So the fact that CL is a main character for, like, 2 episodes near the end is completely irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter, because it's not where the investment is at, because it wasn't established as the investment. It doesn't really matter how everything goes to shit, but one thing that should be mentioned is that during all these stages, things were happening wildly out of order. For instance, even if we were going to go around like, okay, CL did get an introduction, we don't learn what's wrong with him until episode 6. We don't learn that he lost his memories until, like, episode 3. We don't know how their contracts got screwed up, like I said, until episode 6. And we also don't know why Alois even wants CL until episode 8. So so Black Butler usually works in a way of them trying to unravel a mystery with some information being obscured. Like, for instance, in the Curry arc, they're trying to unravel the mystery of who was beating up those guys. And the information obscured is the fact that, no information is obscured. Like, that's part of the thing with Black Butler, it's omnipresent. It doesn't have clever twists by hiding information from the audience. For instance, even the circus, like, if Sebastian already knew something, then it isn't hidden from the audience. It's part of the fun of it. It's not finding the information, it's how the information plays out. And season 2 is so complicated and so convoluted that, let me tell you what the second to last episode is. The second to last episode is basically the characters playing a game of Kahoot, trying to figure out what happened in their godforsaken plot. Sorry, that probably didn't make very much sense.
And they all get it wrong.
Yeah, they all get it wrong.
Most of the time.
They get it wrong. We basically have to do a giant recap of all of the information that was obscured in all of these episodes. Like, for instance, that's one of the biggest issues when you give your main character amnesia and then make it so his butler who knows everything doesn't tell him anything. And then you intentionally mislead Alois's motivations and also completely convolute Claude's motivations too. And then don't even get me started on Hannah. Anyway, the entire plot fails as a plot. Like, it succeeds, but, like, at what cost?
So, another weird thing about season 2 is the fact that, it was made as a sequel to the anime, which ended. Like, the anime, there was no plans for a sequel after the first anime came out. So even though it's technically a canonical continuation of that story, it's still not.
Yeah.
Like, the anime happened and the anime created its own story, and then season 2 was tacked on top of that. And by that point, the manga had gotten somewhat far ahead. Like, the Curry arc had happened, the circus arc was underway. They could have adapted that stuff.
Yeah. They just chose not to.
They chose not to. So season 2 exists in this very strange, like, its existence doesn't make a lot of sense because it's a continuation of something that ended, while also
being a rejection
Mhm.
of the thing that's actually ongoing about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why we don't see Agni and Soma except for like one time in season 2, in which I personally think is racist.
I think that whole scene was kind of racist.
That whole scene was, oh my god, the way that there were people. Another reason why it feels like a liminal space is that there were bitches in like Egyptian costumes.
Like, it didn't have any actual bearing on the time period.
Yeah.
The stakes were completely irrelevant.
Exactly.
None of the like one of the biggest parts
Mm-hmm.
of like the scene where CL had to wear that dress to seduce the Viscount of Druid was the
Yeah.
fact that he was that the dress was like all the rage. Like, that was a
Yeah.
pink dress from France, and it
Yeah.
was supposed to, and it was a little, like, they mentioned like, oh yeah, it's a little short, but because you're supposed to be playing a girl, then that's appropriate.
Exactly.
There aren't the stakes of that in season 2
Mm-hmm.
because literally anyone can wear anything. The fact that
Yeah.
it's Victorian era means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it means nothing. Like just the fact that Agni and Soma were in fucking Sherlock Holmes costumes.
And in that time, like, literally,
Yeah.
it's shown in Black Butler that Sherlock Holmes, like,
It hasn't been
Arthur-
written
yeah,
yet.
Arthur
it's
Conan.
not written. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, and they're in Sherlock Holmes costumes.
yes. It feels like, and the thing is that, that the entire murder arc
Mhm.
is like supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be that
Yeah.
Ciel and Sebastian traumatize the author of Sherlock Holmes
Yeah, Arthur
so
Conan
much
Doyle.
that he makes Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, and it's so wild because it's like,
But you have to see season 2 as this strange, like, it's not the room where it's not the room that season 1 was in. It's not the, like, you know, extensive giant shopping mall
Yeah.
that the manga is. It's this thin hallway,
Mhm.
this thin alleyway.
with greenish yellow lighting.
Mhm.
It's not green, but it's not entirely yellow. It's a little sickly. There
Are you
are like,
describing the back rooms? See, they say if the back rooms, if you no clip out of reality, you end up in the back rooms.
Mhm.
And I think season 2 is what you'd get if you no clipped out of Black Butler.
exactly, because
Me when I follow those TikTok guides and shift into the Black Butler universe, but I do it wrong.
why is there a little blonde boy? Why is there a little blonde boy? Me accidentally shifting to season 2 with you as well, because somehow your dream linked up with my dreamless sleep, and I wake up and I look next at you and I'm like, is there Agni in this universe?
Well, there is, but he's kind of off model. Would you still hit that?
And I just have to. I know there's Hannah in this universe.
Oh, fair point.
Still hit it with Agni though.
And, you know, that's another weird thing about season 2 is the fact that Ciel is in a liminal space. Like, literally in the themes of season 2, he's in a liminal space because season 1 ends with his soul being taken, and season 2 is basically the process of him relocating his soul, relocating his memories, and then realizing that his contract has already been completed. I know someone's barbecuing.
I know.
You're just like Claude when he smelled Ciel's soul.
Bro! Could you not say it's like me smelling Agni's cooking? I know when a male wife is cooking. I know it. I feel it in my bones. I'm like,
No, that's what Claude would be saying about Sebastian. You know, I know what a male wife is cooking. Only it's
I will never get on Claude Bastion. I will never be a...
you've drawn it. Anyway,
That is out of loyalty. I drew it out of loyalty to you, my good friend.
drink your boba. So Ciel is literally in a liminal space. His contract has been completed, but he's still in the area between actually being devoured. And so that's part of the reason why when his contract's completed, he's like, or like when he remembers that his contract's completed, he's like, okay, fuck it, I want to die. Like, he doesn't even fight it because he wants to leave the awful hallway of not knowing this shit.
Yeah.
And that's why there's this scene. This makes me think, I've been mentioning the costume ball episode a lot. There's
Yeah.
this scene where he's running through this hallway chasing Alois, and everything just distorts for him. And he hears like what was happening in the first episode, and he like freaks out. Like he staggers around, he's nauseous, he feels basically detached from his body.
And that's just what season 2 is. And I think there's a bizarre nostalgia to it too, because it's an anime from 2010.
Yeah.
And Black Butler is inherently kind of nostalgic. Like, it was like weird campy anime that you watched when you were way too young to understand it.
Exactly.
And now
because
you're
it
here.
was on Netflix. And it was something anime to watch. And you watched it, you didn't really know what it was, and then you moved on to K Project. And the same thing kind of happened, but at least you were 13 rather than 12.
Yeah, the ending of season 2 is just them breaking out of that liminal space and basically just finally reaching the end of the hallway. And by that I mean there's no conclusion for season 2. It's over. Like, that's it. You can never do anything else with this one plotline of the Black Butler anime. It was killed at the end of season 1, and then it was double killed in season 2.
It was like resurrected in the form of Frankenstein, like abandoned by its creator.
Yeah.
Left to roam the wilderness. It went to the Arctic to go find its creator and went, "I am the monster you created." And then it dove into the water itself, out of its own free will and volition. And you watched it sink all the way to the bottom. And every day you pray it never rises from its grave.
Yeah. I think that summarizes a lot of people's relationship with season 2.
Summarizes mine.
How liminal it is, that Claude is like a parallel of Agni, right? Because Agni and Sebastian are parallels.
Yes.
And so thereby
See the Claude and Sebastian's autistic friendship video.
exactly, right? And so then you have like Agni and Claude, and
A lot of people have been asking me about how, oh shit, it's dark. Wait. Okay.
In the darkness, don't worry.
So, a lot of people have been asking me about how college is, and I haven't been able to give much of a response outside of, it's fine, and also the fact that the suspiciously high amount of activity on my Black Butler YouTube account might be indicating I'm not exactly making friends or hitting up the town. But still, I have a few fun anecdotes from my time here, namely my dorm caught on fire. On Saturday, November 4th, I had just finished watching the last episode of Attack on Titan ever to air with my housemate. We stayed up late together, enjoyed a nice night, decided that Eren and Armin's scene was a lot gayer than it had been in the manga, and then we said our farewells, Shinzo Susageo, all that shit. Average, pleasant evening. We conked out at about 1 a.m. and all was well. For a bit of additional context, AOT had been a huge thing for me growing up. It was my special interest before Black Butler. It raised me for like 5 years. I was obsessed with it. But after all the controversy came out about it in 2021, I started to get bullied for it. I smothered my interest in it, which is not something I would ever recommend anyone else ever do, ever. But I started trying to see it instead of a special interest as a learning period. Sure, the art skills I picked up were still valuable, but the how and the why I got them was unnecessary and irrelevant. I'd moved on to greener pastures. And that night, I passed a threshold. Some part of me was finally let go, finally allowed to transition into the next big thing. It was over. And at 3 a.m., I suddenly heard this horrendous alarm sound. It was awful. My school had notoriously terrible fire alarms, so I ignored it. Is your hand getting tired? Okay, it's fine. It's fine, I'll just hold it.
You just see me get closer and closer in frames as rank
Yes,
goes on.
yes. No, this is long. I know.
It's
emotional. It's emotion. It's fine. So my school had notoriously terrible fire alarms, so I just ignored it. However, it kept going, and after a moment, I began to hear something else. Dripping. Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was my housemate. She said, "Get out of the dorm right now." The people on the floor above us flooded their room somehow. For legal reasons, I'm not allowed to know specifically how they did that, but they actually have a restraining order against us. And that isn't stopping me from shit-talking them on my Black Butler YouTube channel.
However, they did it. It resulted in a bathtub's worth of water spraying out of our light fixtures all over our possessions. Our stuff was ruined. And then one of the steaming, smoking lights caught on fucking fire.
I know.
Yeah, it did. It was awful. We had to relocate. We had to leave the dorm for a week while I tore down the walls, redid the carpet, changed the wires to ensure we didn't, die. And here's what my room looks like at the time of the recording. It's not pretty. But if you flash back to that one day, Sunday the 5th, I had no room, nowhere to go. My only guide was a hastily written note done by the RA and a key card for an emergency landing room. I set out with just the clothes on my back, my soaking wet bag, and that Alois plush, which was currently drenched in toxic Tide Pod fluid. Long story. The halls of the dorm building were dark and long and uninviting, eerie in a way, but also lonely, like I was the only person left alive after an apocalypse. I could hear distant yelling, but it was incoherent. I could even hear laughter, but it echoed. Somehow, that made me feel even more alone. And I was. The dorm situation had scattered me and my housemates like birds someone had thrown a stone at. I didn't have whatever small sense of home I'd managed to scrape together in the dorms. No safety, not even a room over my head. Sure, there were silly gay people in my phone, but they couldn't fill the empty stone hallways. You couldn't be there. It was just that part of myself.
It was a school night, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was. That part of myself was even more distant than I'd been before, and it kind of reminded me of how I felt during the summer, like I was walking to some uninviting location because I had nowhere else to go. Childhood was over, my high school year had wrapped up uneventfully, and I spent most of my time just online on the computer, but without any true social connection. I wanted to leave, not because I hated my parents, but because I just wanted to. And I didn't know where to go, and I definitely didn't know if I would be happy there either. So I reached the dorm I'd been assigned to. There was no sheet on the bed. Why the hell wasn't there a sheet on the bed? I didn't have my sheets because, water gushing from an artery in the ceiling ruined all my stuff. I tried to wash my blanket, and that caused the Tide Pod fiasco, which is part of the reason my plush was drenched in polyvinyl alcohol. Don't ask. The point was, I had nothing. Just my clothes, my laptop, the saddest birthday boy in the world, and an empty mattress with no sheets. I laid down on the mattress. I thought of the bleakness of it all. I wanted to go home, but the kid I was at the beginning of the year didn't exist anymore. No one ever tells you this about living on your own, but you change. You go from being scared and unsure to having the wary disposition of a parent looking after a scared toddler. But you're both the parent and the toddler. It's impossible to regain the same dynamic with your own parents that you lost. And now I'm thinking of that edgy CL quote. The one something is lost, it can never truly be regained.
Yeah.
Yeah. I spent 2 months in college. All I learned was that my disability was painfully real, cafeteria food tastes awful if you eat it every day, and that everything that makes your life normal can be ripped away from you at a moment's notice. I thought of my old room. When I was home one day, the window was open, and sunlight was streaming in, and it looked lovely and way more inviting than I ever kept it, but lonely. A thin layer of dust had settled over everything. That was my room, but it was for a different me. So I laid on the mattress for about 3 hours, phasing in and out of consciousness, and in one of those phases I thought, liminality is an emotion you feel when things are changing. Liminal spaces are comforting because they hold the feeling that either something has changed significantly or that they're about to. Either you're at the destination looking back, or you're at the crossroads unsure of where you're meant to go. In this flooded subway station, where do you go? Do you walk into the idyllically crystal clear water to be consumed and digested by the paved walls? What about this room? What was it before you stripped everything away? Is this the beginning or the ending? A new home or the last moments before a new family takes it away? An empty room has 1,000 possibilities, but the memory of a room from your childhood can only have one, and the halls are simply places between those rooms, between those memories. That's the charm of the liminal spaces, an infinite present and an encapsulated past and an unsure photo. It was the 5th of November, but it was also a present that stretched out before me, one of the longest days of my life. It was also Alois Trancy's birthday.
That was the funniest shit ever, though, because I got the fucking call and I was like, isn't it Trancy? Isn't it?
I'd been looking forward to that day for months, and I had an entire animation plan, for Christ's sake, and currently the boy was stuck in a little plastic bag, awaiting being cleaned off of his toxic waste. Because I let a Tide Pod explode on him, and he had to pay the price, and now I couldn't even cuddle him to make myself feel better, because he was covered in what were effectively inhalant drugs.
Yeah.
He was the real victim of today, not me.
Honestly, I feel like you should have gotten high.
I probably was. I probably was
Yeah.
some form of intoxicant. My head was, I don't know. And, you know, in my fleeting consciousness as I was, like, laying on the mattress, like, losing my mind, just completely, you know, out of it and
Yeah.
stuck. I had this thought, it'd be really funny if I drew Alois Trancy in the backrooms. Don't pluck, Alois. I had to... You put that back.
I could throw him in the toilet right now.
But you don't because you love me so much.
Oh, are we locking ourselves in here? Like some...
Yes, please. I'm very chapped.
Yeah, it's beeswax.
Oh, thank you.
It smells like bee.
I've never smelled a bee before. It's reminding me of Rosh Hashanah
Rosh Hashanah?
for a sweet new year. You know,
Oh, awesome.
apples and honey.
Savannah, get Ash Wednesday.
Why are you so greasy?
Because I'm always... Okay. Did I leave a streak on your bathroom wall? I don't know. Maybe it's slipperier here.
Yeah, there's like...
Polishing the walls.
Okay.
With my grease.
So, all right, I'm gonna, to wrap it all together, I think the point I am circling is the fact that there is a strange comfort in the fact that, you know, season 2 can never be changed. The hallways will go on forever, never reaching their intended location. The pictures, though they might fray and fade, will always contain the same memories. The past is stagnant even if we recontextualize it with new information. And season 2 is like that. It's an island, no future, just an infinite existence. There will never be a continuation of it because it's over. In the future of the manga, we don't know the direction Sebastian and Ciel will be pulled in. But we do know Alois and Claude. Some of my friends have theorized about the upcoming hotel arc in the manga, how they're scared something horrible is going to happen, or how they're scared the characters might be twisted. There's a character, but there's also, as we all know, the story and the frame around that character. And there's an anxiety when you know what the character would say and would do, but you're not sure if the story is gonna go in that direction. That's just the nature of things that keep going. And none of us are the author. So we're anxious to know what'll happen. And we don't know about like the reception or, you know, where even we'll be like as a fandom in a few months. And that's honestly a very, very strange and unstable feeling. It's kind of like with you know, Attack on Titan, like I said earlier. We don't know how our opinions will change in the future. We don't know if this thing that's meant so much to us will be violently ripped away from us, you know? And that's part of like, not to get too into it, but that's part of one of the biggest flaws of fandom toxicity. It's the fact that it takes what should be a stable-ish community, like you're all based around the same concrete storyline, but controversy and fandom drama can turn what would be a peaceful meadow into a battlefield. And we don't want our opinions on this kind of thing to be changed, obviously. We don't want to reach the end of the hallway and, you know, have the story finally be done, because once it's done, like, what do you do? Do you just stay in that hallway knowing it's not going to go anywhere, or do you move on to another greater thing? And I think both of us have experiences doing both.
Yeah.
Honestly.
As a current Arcane fan, I'm so excited that it's going to release, the second season is going to release in November of 2024. And as a current Trigun fan, watching Stampede do the same shit again.
Yeah, exactly. You've got the hallway will keep going on and on and on as more and more stuff is created, and the hallway will be as you know, filled or as empty as you make it to be. But then there's also just places where it ends, where they're just as stagnant and distant as those old playrooms from the 80s, those houses that you swear you've been to with a relative.
those places are just empty. And I mean, they're full of life in their own way, but they're not going anywhere. So, yes, everyone's bound to be a little disappointed when something ends. I mean, this one's a Voltron fan. So...
Don't talk about it, don't talk about it, don't talk about it, don't talk about it, please, 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 for the sake of my sanctity.
So, what happens if it never was? What if something's existence holds no value on the actual canon of the story, and you were given the ultimate choice? Does this exist to me, or does it not? It won't matter either way. I can decide if this is a hallway I want to walk down, if it can be completely divorced from the original source material, or if I can embrace it and sort of rope it back in, or see it as its own thing. And that's why I keep coming back to season 2. There is no grand narrative. It will always just be this mildly uncomfortable corridor stretching... It will always just be this mildly uncomfortable corridor stretching in an unseen, unreachable direction, and it has been doing so for 15 years. The characters inside are skewed and transitional, but they're also secure in their own inconsistent writing. The narrative can't change them anymore because the story is over. We grasp the entirety of them in our hands with no secrets and no more surprised or horrifying twists. Those have already happened. So this middle section, this understanding that season 2 was pointless, useless, and its existence is just as meaningless, it's really reassuring, especially as we're dragged through our own transitions and pathways. Nothing happened. In the actual narrative, none of these characters exist unless we want them to. And even so, they won't be changed by someone else. Season 2 is the ultimate liminality of Black Butler in that sense. No matter what happens in any other part of it, they will always be there, unmoved by the plot of the manga. You can't get rid of them, they're already gone.